Today we're going to talk about making a shell, conch shell. It's going to be up to you to design what you're going to create and make. But we're going to use 2 pinch bowls. Again, they're going to be 1 pound total of clay, so half a pound per ball to make your pinch bowls. The only thing different, you've made a bowl in the past, you should have a round bottom. Well, these are going to have points. I'll show you in the video how to do this. I do recommend you grab a couple reference material pictures, either on your phone, print them out, something to go along with building your piece. So you have kind of a reference look to build and make your own little shell. You're gonna add some textures to it, some lines, different dividers into it, add little knobs. I'll show you how to do that with this one right here. This is kind of a fun little unique project. Think about how you're gonna finish it. You're gonna paint it, you're gonna glaze it, how certain parts are gonna work. You really gotta think about the whole process. More likely we're gonna paint these first couple projects. So, let's see what you can do making a shell using the pinch method.
Starting off with your project, you're gonna start with a half a pound of clay per ball to make your shell. So you have 2 balls of clay that are half a pound. Once you got them figured out, you're gonna begin to make them. You push your thumb in like you do a pinch bowl, but you're gonna kind of use that hand to kind of guide it and shape it. You're gonna make them almost to a point. So I'm taking them and kind of using my hand to kind of slap them to make them kind of a point kind of shape is what I'm doing here working on these. I want them to have kind of a cone shape to them, not so round. Like we make pinch bowls, we're gonna have more of a cone shape to them as the picture here shows you. We kind of work on making both. Make sure when you make both your bowls, the lips of them both match up so you can join them together. As you can see, as I'm shaping my bowls, I'm also, again, as I said earlier, checking on to make sure the lips match. That's very important because you really can't put the shell together if the lips do not match. So kind of work the shape, make sure they all work well together, make sure I have a point on both, and then I'm good to go. What I'm doing here is I'm taking the top part of my shelf, using a pencil, and turning it slowly and drawing a line. This gives me the idea of where I want that shape of that shell. If you look at a picture of a shell, you can see it's got that certain shape to it. Once I've got the shape on there, I'm then going to go back in with wooden, we call them wooden carving tools or wooden tools, kind of press into the shape to kind of define it even more before I begin to join them together. I'm then going to go back in with my hands after I got the line drawn on there. I'm also going to push out the shape some more as well. You might have some part of the piece collapse. You have to go back in, smooth it, shape it on the inside, make sure it's ready to go and work the shape. So we can see here, that's what I'm doing. I'm kind of just working that shape around with that stick, getting it ready to go. And then I'll kind of go back in with my hands, push out the various different shapes, make it the way I want to, give it some more balloon, kind of begin to make it that shell shape. Now I'm coming back using what's called a rubber finisher or a rubber on a stick, and it's kind of like a small little ribbon tool or ribbon on there, and that way I can kind of shape it and smooth it out. I'm also now double checking the shape of my shell, making sure they both match because I have done some reshaping to the piece. I want to make sure everything works correctly, so I double check and make sure they're going to fit. Once I have the basic shape of one side of my shell, I'm now going to score and slip the 2 pinch bowls together, double checking the fit of the lips of the 2 bowls I started with. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to score them, really rough them up with a serrated rib, and then I'm going to add some slip to it that's in the bottles and get ready to place them on. You don't have to use slip. I do. You can score them really well. Take a brush, add some water, or use a slip. I'm using some slip on this, so I want to make sure that seam is really well joined together. So once I have the basic pieces all cut together or scored, I'm then going to put the slip onto it and begin to press and meld and weld them together. I'm really right now taking the time to press the two bowls together, really push them together, make sure that slip can really bond and that seams really bond really well together. I'm also using a wooden stick, pulling the two seams together so you can't see them, using my finger, kind of making it look like it's one piece. It's almost seamless. You can't even see the original seam where it originally was. When I cut the piece open, I can go back in, smooth the inside even better. Go back in with my little wooden shaper and make sure everything's nice and blended and well smoothed together. I'm now looking for the place to begin to make my cut. I usually kind of fall along that line a little bit, and then I'll take my knife. First I'll draw out a line, kind of give me a rough idea where I'm going to cut from. So I kind of take that line, follow it around, get to the end point where I want to be, and then I'm going to come back in there with my knife and cut it out and begin to expand open, because shells have a little open part to them, and this is where I begin to do that part. So this kind of spaces it out, gets it ready to go. Then I'm going to take my fingers in there, begin to kind of prod it, open it up, kind of expand it out so we have what looks like a shell. This is the most crucial time. It's just you and your fingers looking at your images as reference and trying to make that shell come across as well as you can. It may crack or break where you drew the lines. You have to go back in there with a little bit of a wet sponge, take a stick, blend it back together. Kind of work it. The clay is soft right now, so you really kind of work it and shape it how you want it to be. But this is really where you take the time to look like that shell you want it to look like. Here's what I talked about earlier, taking that damp brush and kind of in the sponge, going over the piece, kind of smoothing it together. Make sure the seams are really well blended. Make sure that it's going to crack and fall apart. Again, look at that picture as a reference material so I have a rough idea of what I'm building, what I'm making, so I can kind of follow along with what I'm doing. That's just crucial. Really making sure the seams are really well joined together. Nothing's going to crack or break when it dries. So when I fire it later, it stays together in one piece. To help my project stiffen up a bit, there's nothing wrong with going back in there with a hair dryer to help dry it out a little bit so it makes it firmer. Some of you might get to the point of the day of the class and like, oh, I'm done working. That's fine as well. You're more than welcome to do that and just kind of wrap it up, come back the next day. But if time is a factor, nothing wrong with using a hair dryer to have it dry out a little bit. Once I get the basic shape of my shell done, I'm going to start adding some decorations to it, some textures. On this one here, I'm adding little spikes. So I'm taking about a 1/4 pound of clay, beginning to separate it in little pieces so I can make them in the shape of the spikes, as my picture here shows. I can also come back in and add coils to the ridges to make the ridges stand out more. There's lots of other ways I can really make that shell more pronounced. It's really up to you what you want to do. I'm more than help to guide you along your way and help you out. Experiment a little bit, play around a little bit. Just don't leave the shell blank. Really go back in, add some more details, really sculpt it, change it from what it originally was. You know, even with these spikes, I can put them on the very front of the shell to the very back of the shell to make it even more look more elongated. But really play around with this idea and come along with your idea. You know, there's nothing really right or wrong with this. So kind of work it along, try to make the best piece you possibly can. Once I get done making all my pieces, this is where I begin to add them. I score and slip the very bottom of the piece and the piece I'm attaching it to. And then I'm going to apply some you take a little cup of water and apply them that way. You can use slip if you want to, but the clay is still pretty soft. By really scoring that area really well, it'll make slip right then and there. And then you kind of just press it together to kind of begin to get the shape. So here I'm elongating my shell a bit, and then I'm also going to get to add them around the piece as well and kind of give that shell some more definition, some more defined. You can add crustaceans to it. You can do whatever you want to it to really make it your own shell. Look at images, Google them, look them, so you kind of know what to make and what you're going to do. Just take the time and working on them. I just take them, score both places, and I kind of press down. That is the crucial part. You need to make sure you really press them down onto the piece so they do not come off. That is crucial to make this work. If you just kind of stick them on there and don't take the time to blend them, they're gonna fall off. I cannot stress that enough to you. Also, I'm going back over, besides just sticking the pieces on there, I'm also going back over blending and smoothing, really looking at my whole entire piece, making sure it's exactly how I want it to be. When the clay is super soft, you can really manipulate and work it. The firmer it gets, the less you can do with it. So that's one thing to remember. Always get the basic shape and idea and stuff like that you want to do. If I also get the piece even a little bit wet of water, I can elongate the pieces. I can do lots of stuff to my work. So really take the time, work on your shapes, add your pieces to it, really make it unique and make it your own. Here I'm going back adding texture to the piece using that little rubber smoother shaper piece, give some texture. If I wanted to, I go back and put lines, really look at what your shell is and what you're making and go from there. Then I take my sponge, smooth it over, clean up the piece a little bit, get it ready to be finished. I'm going to sign it and I'm going to be done with it, I think, here. But really look at what you're building, what you're making, and expand upon what you're doing. Either use a chop that you've made with your initials or sign it with your pencil and your piece is going to be completely done. Let's see what you can make now.